I don't know why my camera shut off. Maybe it'll do it again. But my entire world broke. Everything that I knew about people, about pleasure, about pain, about how the world works, about what is safe, what is not safe, the range of experiences that I had had up to date could not have prepared me for what happened. My whole world was cracked open, and I saw and experienced things that no human should ever have to see or experience. The depth of suffering and the depth of suffering was greater than even trying to imagine my worst vision of what hell could be like, with the fires and the devils and everything. It was worse than that. And I didn't think that was possible. I thought that was fiction. I didn't think, something like that could exist. All my experiences in my entire world that had been built up until that point was shattered as I realized that I had only scratched the surface of what was possible in this world. And of course, unfortunately, it was all on the negative side. There are some people who go through enlightenment and wonderful experiences and like heaven on earth type situations. And so I know that if the greatest depths, the one good thing is of the greatest depths of suffering that is possible, that I now know exists, then I'm sure, by contrast, by dichotomy, that the most elated, wonderful, enlightened peace, love, amazingness of heaven has to also exist, because you can't have that's just physics. The force is always the same on each side, right? So anyways, that's not where I'm going with this. This is why I don't talk about my story, because it's traumatic. I can't explain it in human words. There are no words. I don't want to relive it. I probably am. I'm reliving it every day in my body. My body, has learned to deal with life from the perspective that it has to protect me. So that's what trauma is. You're on guard. You're on guard. You're always on guard. You are always trying to safeguard and protect and make sure that never happens again. So your nervous system, your central nervous system, is always fighting, fleeing, searching for help, and collapsing, just completely shutting down. That's trauma. That is trauma. So one of the other reasons I don't talk about my story in full detail is so that I imagine that my children will see these videos one day. Not now. That's why I originally started making them, is just I wanted my story captured. If anything were to have happened, I wanted them to know the truth. But the truth is something that they maybe can't handle. Even I don't know if I can handle it. It's easier to talk about it in human words, in words that people can understand, and sort of gloss over it and just say like, oh, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, rather than go into the depths of the actual experience, which I may or may not ever do. But okay, let's just get on with the story. That being said, these are the reasons why I don't want to traumatize my children. I don't want to go so deep that it gives them problems if they ever see these videos, just out of respect and protection, self-protection, I guess, from judgment from the world. Anyway, okay, so let's carry on. My story. I don't remember where I was, but I was away from home for the first time ever. I had left my children I was gone for a total of 10 weeks. And at this facility, I was rehabbing, coming off all the terrible drugs. And it was an experience, hell on earth, dropping my dose every day. I remember crying every day, constantly. I don't even think there was a time when I wasn't crying. When I look back and reflect, I was just sobbing continually. I couldn't, I sobbed. I couldn't stop sobbing. Everything made me sob. I was a wreck. I was so scared. I was so sad. I was so locked in trauma. I had no perception of myself. I couldn't feel or think or even center in any way. I was a shell of who I once was. I didn't exist. I really believed that I wasn't human. I didn't have any human qualities at that point. There was, however, a little piece of me, a little soul inside that kept me alive, that talked to me, that said, keep going, you can do this, you're still in here, you're still alive, you're somewhere. Like, I know you don't know where I am, I know you can't find it, I know you can't grasp anything that seems human or reality or of this earth, but you're here, you're in here. It was just so little, it was so little. And I know that if I experience that through everything that I went through, that anyone can experience that soul is separate from our humanness. It's something else. It's what's left when the body's gone. It's the real us. Anyways, that's just getting philosophical and deep where I didn't mean to go. So I don't want to get into all the specifics of this place or what I did, but I was basically taking a ton of chelators. I was in saunas for 4 hours a day. I was, stopping the drugs. I was, in theory, this place was good because it was meant to detox you and teach you about a clean, healthy lifestyle and, get the poison out of your body. But I was a wreck. I was a complete disaster, and it was just making me sicker. I was so sick, and maybe I'll go into a few experiences there, but, people were trying to commit suicide, having seizures, pacing around, crying, screaming, going into psychotic rages, episodes. It was horrifying to have been a person who didn't abuse substances and who didn't do drugs, didn't drink, didn't choose this, to be so sick from these medications and so wrecked on every level. And it's so unbelievable to me, and I'll go in those in other videos about the dangers of these medications, but needless to say, I was like, I'd come from the sheltered life, and I was now living, it's like, watching people come off heroin and just crazy. It's just like, how did I get here? Can I wake up from this nightmare? How did I get here? Just a girl from a small town who had a great childhood, who was loved, who, has a husband and children and didn't abuse anything and was normal and had hopes and dreams, and now I'm here and I'm watching all this and I'm seeing this and I can't access myself and I'm not human anymore. I'm suffering beyond the depths of any words could ever describe. And I don't know if I'm going to live or die. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And I prayed to die. I prayed to die every second of the day. Every millisecond, I prayed to die. For years. For years. I prayed constantly for death because this suffering was so intense and so beyond any human's ability to withstand. Is all that you can do. You just render yourself. Just pray. Like, please take me. I can't do this anymore. But there was still this fighting spirit that knew death was not the answer. This was not my time to go. This was not right. And this was not right. And until I said it right, it wasn't my time to go. Anyways, so by the time in that place, there was terrible things that went on. There was more drugging. There was terrible, I was being screamed at and almost held like a hostage, and it was just like a terrible, like, being fed these medications, and it was very like dehumanizing. But at the same time, there was people there, like lovely people who saved my life, who on a person-to-person basis like sat with me, talked with me, stayed up, held my hand, just looked at me when I needed contact or reassurance, or drew me a bath when I couldn't stand or undress myself or even figure out what my pajamas looked like in order to climb into them and get into bed. It was a dichotomy of sorts. It was very hard for me to process it, and I still can't process what happened. But I know I left that place sicker than I came. Nearly $40,000 later, and when my husband showed up to get me, I couldn't talk, couldn't see. I mean, I had been crawling up and down the hallway because I couldn't even walk. I couldn't see. I had been, to the hospitals. I had been near death, and no vision, no sense of self, not able to walk, not able to talk, barely able to think. I couldn't pack my own bag to go home. I couldn't take the clothes out of my drawer and figure out how to put them in the bag. Like, I couldn't process anything small, and I was just sitting there like a vegetable when he walked in. It's like, I need help. That's all I said, basically, for 2 years. All I said is the only words I said, and I emailed him constantly every day. And the only time I spoke, basically, aside from wherever I could speak to my children, and there was a strength, and I'll talk about that later, that allowed me to function as a robot in front of my children for a couple of years in very tiny, small amounts. But the only other words that I could utter to my husband or to anybody else that had any kind of emotion attached to them was, help me, help me. That's all I could say, is help me, please help me. So, I came home. I can't relive these moments, the moment I saw my son again, the moment I saw my daughter. Them flying into my arms and me, like, knowing that this was my child, but I didn't know myself, I didn't know them, I couldn't speak, I couldn't process, I had nothing left. My nervous system was shut down head to toe, and I remember not wanting to scare them and just wanting to be me, and like having an inner fight that was like, this isn't gonna ruin them, so you have to be strong. But like trying to pretend I was okay when I was virtually dead, and just like not even able to know anything, but I knew them. I knew their spirit. I knew it was them. I could see the look in their eyes. And I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel the love. I couldn't feel anything, but I just felt connected to their soul. Like, I knew that I had to get back there for them. Anyways, I had come home, And from there, it was, I mean, when I left that place, they said, oh yeah, probably, give it a couple of months and she should be back to normal. Because my husband was irate, spending all this money, me nearly dying, just coming back to pick me up in this state. And he was like, I'm not spending this money. Like, look at her. Like, what is going on? And they were like, it'll be fine. Like, it'll be fine. Everything will return to normal. She'll bounce back. Her equilibrium will come back. Everything will come back. Just give it, a couple weeks to a couple of months. She'll be okay. And I lived in a state of hell on earth, completely non-functional, for 3 years. In between my third and fourth years, when I started to get some good days and bad days and some functionality back and some signs of life and healing, but still the bad days in between there, they didn't end. It was like on off. But up until that 3-year period, it was millisecond by millisecond, minute by minute by minute by minute by minute, 24 hours a day, every day, wanting to kill myself, just begging for death. Nothing could be, just totally ruined on every single level. The pain was so intense. I had a list of over 200 symptoms, and I don't want to get into the symptoms right now. I will do a whole video on just symptoms alone, but everything from buzzing and burning, all alive, all through my brain, all through my face, all through my eyes, all through my hands, feet, limbs, chest, everywhere, head to toe. It's like being doused in gasoline and set on fire every second of every day. That's one symptom. Yeah, okay, so I had 200 symptoms. Crushing in my brain, basically a brain moving and crushing. I could feel like I had over 20 brain symptoms alone, but just like the unbearable crushing, like rocks, like somebody taking baseball bats and just smashing your brain just over and over and over and leaving you like basically dead on the road with smashed brains. This was one symptom. So now we've gotten over two. So like 200 life-threatening symptoms. So I'm not going to go into all of them right now, but I couldn't read. I couldn't even post a one-sentence Facebook line. It took me 3 years to be able to put together a sentence. Reliving it is not what I want to do, so I'm not going to go any further, but for now, I just want to say that the next 3 years was, I would just go lock myself in closets, the laundry room, turn on the washer and dryer, turn on the shower, just cry, scream, go out into the middle of the woods, lie down on the ground, beg God, kick, scream, dig at the earth. I mean, I was a wild animal. The sounds that came out of me were like primal, and I was like a rabid wild animal that needed to be shot. It was horrifying. The cries, the desperation, the crying, the helplessness, the desperation. It was I don't know how I survived it, and I don't know how I took care of my children. I don't know how I made it through, except to say that the will is stronger than anything. If you have a why, you can survive anything. So I survived. But I was in trauma, severe trauma, shut down. And even still to this day, it's like a PTSD. It's like trauma. The way my nervous system learned to cope and survive was to fight, flee, desperately search for help, and completely shut down and immobilize. And so my nervous system still stays on heightened alert because it wants to protect at all costs. It wants to make sure this never happens again. And so the nervous system is always heightened. And so that's why finding ways to calm the central nervous system is essential to healing chronic illness, healing chronic pain, healing trauma, healing anything, because it lives inside you. It lives inside the body. It lives in your limbic system. It lives in your nerves. It lives in your frontal cortex. It lives in your brain. It lives in the deepest parts of evolution that has taught your body how to survive. It lives in survival instinct, and that needs to be retrained, soothed, loved, calmed. You need to learn to trust, and basically, like a little baby, you need to relearn what is safe, what is real, who you can trust, who you can count on, how to handle distressing feelings, danger, what to do. Because your instinct will do anything it can to keep you safe, and that is to just be on guard constantly, to immobilize earlier than you ever need to flight and flee everything. You know, yeah, maybe I'll just leave this story here and say that those were the darkest, most disturbing days of my life and years of my life, and I probably will do another video on it to sort of talk about the symptoms, talk about a few of the experience, maybe isolate a